Well, hi guys. I was just looking at BJ's video about Dr. Drew maybe losing his doctor license. I thought she'll be the best person to explain it because she was a lawyer. She still has the knowledge. She's letting it rip and letting us know. Now, this Britney Stan account on Twitter, I believe they're the persons that reported him for the Goldwater rule. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you one thing. Something's up. Something's up with Britney. And it's not just drugs. It's probably that she has a mental disorder, as we've all thought for a very long time. He's stating that the conservatorship saved her life because the disorder was so bad back in the day. And then she was medicated for 13 years. As soon as the conservatorship ended, you know who we've been seeing on Instagram. Someone who's lost their tiny little mind. And let's have a listen to what BJ has to say.
We are writing to file a complaint against Dr. Drew Pinsky, who is currently licensed by the Medical Board of California, and then they give his license number, for violating the Goldwater rule. On May 15th, 2023, Dr. Drew Pinsky appeared on a national television broadcast, quote, TMZ investigates the price of freedom, and claimed that Britney Spears is suffering from a biological brain disorder that requires medication, despite the fact that he has never treated or evaluated her.
I don't believe that he's ever consulted Britney Spears, because if he has, he would say it. We've seen him talk about many different people, but he never says that he's personally seen them. He's a very good doctor, especially with addictions. He is a psychiatrist. Everyone, stop hating on someone that is way smarter than all of us in this regard, in this area. And we should listen to what he says, because he is not going to say outlandish stuff, because he knows he will lose his license. And this Britney Stan account is just reaching. They're grasping at straws, because Dr. Drew has said this many times. Go on YouTube. I'm going to actually show you a clip from a year ago, but he has been saying the same thing for 12 years. And it's nothing new to me. He has been saying that she probably has bipolar, and she probably takes other things like stimulants that affect this disorder. But let's keep going. Hey, why don't I show you what Dr. Drew says? And you may see that this Britney Stan account that you all adore is grasping at the straws. You feel me? You dig?
None of us really know exactly what's going on with her. We don't know her. We're not involved in her care, right? But we do know that she was sick enough to need to be in the hospital for weeks and had serious enough mental illness to be put on a conservatorship, which is reserved for the more serious mental illnesses. Now, she's been stable for a long time. The issue will be, does she remain stable when she goes out into the world? Can she come back for proper medication checks, follow-up? Does she do what she's supposed to do? And I wonder what kind of psychotherapeutic or behavioral interventions they're going to put in place as well that can help her sort of identify and understand her illness so she's motivated to stay with her care.
How would you set up a transition so that she doesn't spiral down a road?
Clearly, medication are an important part of the game here. I think, one of the things I would do is set up a directive. I would say, Brittany, we got to sit down. You're of sound mind right now, but you need to write in writing that you're going to allow me to intervene if you decompensate. I can put you in the hospital. I can give you medication even if you don't want it, if it's in your best interest, in the opinion of multiple physicians. And we're going to do this, and we're going to do it in a highly structured way, and I would watch her very, very, very carefully. That's the main thing.
Did you guys just hear him say, I have not personally seen her? But do you think he's seen many people that act like her? Oh, yes, he has. Have you guys ever watched Celebrity Rehab? A lot of them act like Britney. And you know what? He's a doctor. He's seen it. Have you got a friend that's a doctor or a nurse, and you've got like a sore ankle or something's up, and you go, hey, I got this something going on, and you'll listen to them. You'll take their advice because they are experts on it. So don't be weird. Don't be weird saying, nobody can talk about Britney. Nobody can unless they have personally diagnosed them. It's like, I think he speaks very well about this subject. And I think he knows what he's talking about. But let's just have a little bit more of a listen. Hey.
There were nights where she was up and I had to stay up with her. She was taking Adderall.
So there was some reporting of her taking Adderall and becoming quite manic on that, which people with bipolar disorder, that's taking stimulants is anathema. It's the worst thing they can do. The excessive use of stimulants can damage the brain, but not on a short-term basis. And untreated, burned out bipolar disorder can hurt how your brain develops and ages. So it's not a healthy state to be in, that's for sure. But just a short-term decompensation doesn't really mean anything.
Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because if she's taking stimulants whilst she is taking medication, it is going to exacerbate the problem. If she's not taking medication but only stimulants, it's going to exacerbate the problem. And that's why he just then said a year ago, this is not from the recent doco, a year ago, he said it will affect the brain's biology. It will affect the growth of the brain. And that might be why we're seeing Britney act like a teenager every single day. You know, go on TikTok. You'll see them. They're doing what Britney does every single day, just spinning in circles. But when it's a little youngster, teenager, you're like, oh, they're just having fun. But when it's a 41-year-old woman and it's actually Britney Spears, the pop icon, well, something's up. We don't have to be doctors to see this. Something is up. But let's keep listening. He says some other awesome things that will close this argument down, and he will never lose his license, you foolios.
Now, I understand that people are worried about Britney Spears, and they should be. Clearly, there are people that are giving her access to things that are not great for her. But this therapeutic team that got her the conservatorship, put her in the hospital, saved her life. Make no mistake about it. Has it gone too far? Probably. I am disturbed that the conservatorship team felt they had to essentially spy on her. But once again, we don't know the parameters of the conservatorship. They may have been charged with doing things like that, lest they incur liability if something bad happened to her. That might have been part of their responsibility. It seems ridiculous. It seems excessive. I don't like it, but we really don't know what their charge was at the time. I think these claims will result in an investigation, and I think they warrant an investigation because, as I've said, we don't know, thus the public, looking from the outside in, the parameters of this conservatorship. If it didn't include doing things like such that they had done that was excessive, that's a problem.
Do you think Jamie could be in serious trouble, in your opinion?
You got to put yourself in Jamie Spears' shoes as a father who has been concerned about his daughter with a serious illness for many, many years. If you're the father and you think you've done what's right, you're probably willing to take those punches. If you've got to sit up and take the punches on behalf of your child, you'll just do it. So if he's a good guy, which I suspect he is, again, she's done exceedingly well. The fact that she has been so stable, she hasn't been in the hospital, she's been able to work, she now has her own money. That speaks volumes about the efficacy of what her therapeutic team and this conservatorship has done.
There you go. You can't deny that. The efficacy of being in a conservatorship for 13 years. We saw a pretty lucid thinking, hardworking, talented Britney Spears. When it stopped, the conservatorship stopped, we saw somebody else. So that makes sense. And he also says it went on for too long. Correct. But when you've got a dad and a mum who are just good old boys from Louisiana, and they don't know a lot, and they're thinking, well, look at how awesome Britney was in those years. I can understand. They're not that clever, and they keep her in it because they're like, it's keeping her alive. And dad does not care because he loves his daughter and he's going to take the punches. And I know I can hear all of you in the peanut gallery right now going, oh my God, he hated her. And I used to believe that too. Yeah, I did. But then I'm not saying he's a nice person. Dr. Drew said it because he's just a doctor and he's just being very ambiguous in his statements. But I've always thought he's a little bit mean, a little bit tough, but then again, maybe he needed to be. I don't freaking know. We all pretend we know way too much about Britney, and we truly, truly don't. And in the medical records, it might have stated that they needed to record her in her room, as he just said. If they didn't do that, then they would be charged if something happened. I've never even thought about that concept, that if she actually ended her life or something under their watch, they would get charged with it. They had to do it. I mean, after the conservatorship, all of this went to court, especially about Black Box, the security team. and nothing eventuated. You remember? Nothing. Because in the medical documents that are sealed and we can't read, it probably states exactly what he just said. That if you guys don't watch her 24/7 and something happens, it's on you, right? So that definitely makes sense. And I understand a lot more, even just watching his interview, short interview on Entertainment Tonight a whole year ago. A lot's changed in a year. We have seen someone who has really lost their minds. And that is poor old Britters. And I just think something's got to change. I guess that's why the family tried to do an intervention. Yeah, it's a really hairy situation. But hey, let me take you back to someone else who lost their minds publicly, and everyone laughed daily. Do you remember Charlie Sheen when he was winning? Everyone laughed at him. Everyone thought it was the funniest shit they'd ever seen. Because, yeah, he was in a manic state. And Dr. Drew's also going to talk about this, hypermania. Britney might have a bit of that going on when she's in her mania state of bipolar. Maybe the team actually is doing a really good job in not allowing her to talk, to upload videos every day like Charlie Sheen did. Did you ever think about that? Like, think about it just for a second. Anyone who's watching this who's a full Free Britney maniac and doesn't believe anything I'm saying, you've got to actually take into account that maybe the team is protecting her because she'd be talking exactly like Charlie Sheen. And the very, very small snippets we see of her talking, she's usually talking in a British accent and it's just gobbledygook. And you can't understand a word she's saying. It's a roller coaster. You know, just whatever. It's madness. So the more I listen to Dr. Drew, the more I understand. But aside from that, the more I believe that something very tragic is up with Britney Spears. And I believe she is not taking her meds because no one's in control of her anymore. I understand that now. And she's taking a lot of stimulants and she is stimulized daily. Awake for days, dancing in the foyer, dancing in Westlake, wherever she is. She's just dancing. That's all she does. That is actually all she does. You can't tell me she does other things. All she does is dance in front of her camera. That's it. Let's have a quick listen to what Charlie was saying back in the day. Hey?
Built by trolls. Keep that in mind. Phones were built by trolls. Okay, that gives us like 6,000 hours. Okay, great. Well, as it should be, duh. People need to hear my gold as it rolls out, not as it's like disappearing like so many freaking, magician's rabbits. We are in the middle of a movement here, an odyssey of epic proportions. Epic proportions. Well, hello, duh. I had more than fun. I had me with it. My plan is the best one in the room, and people are starting to wake up and realize that. Walk into my plan, and you're going to win. Winner.com. We're in the middle of genius, foiled by phones and trolls. And people are calling through, and it pisses me off because they're like interrupting again my brilliance. Well, I mean, what's not to love? It's my life. Winning. As I was saying, because people are calling, I need to change my number to get rid of these freaking interruptive trolls. Winning. Waiting and winning. Waiting for everyone to catch up. Everybody wins.
Well, you guys all remember all that, don't you? He was talking 1,000 miles an hour, saying the wildest stuff I've ever heard. It was funny and sad at the same time. No one gave a shit, did they? No one gave a shit at how much everyone was laughing at him and going, wow, he has lost it. So how come the world can diagnose Charlie Sheen, say he's a drug addict or say he's bloody off his meds or say he's in a hypermanic state? How come the world can say that, whether they're doctors or not? But when it comes to Britney Spears, you cannot say anything about her. She's locked up. She's been trapped again. It's like, guys, you don't see the difference between her and the conservatorship and her now? It's like night and day. So why can't we say this? Why can't we say that the difference is huge? I want you guys to hear what Dr. Drew has to say about Charlie acting like this. Does it make you angry that he's assuming once again because he is an expert? Yeah, let's have a listen.
So, Dr. Drew, I hadn't been following this as closely as a lot of people, but I saw this video today, this latest video that he's put out, and it's really just stunning. I mean, this is a guy, he seems to be on the edge.
Right. It's disturbing and it's uncharacteristic. It's clearly a change. It's a condition we call hypomania. It's an inflated sense of self, grandiosity, pressured speech, distractibility, a belief in special powers. It's infectious, but the fact is it's a medical condition.
What do you mean it's
infectious? It never stays the same. It either gets worse. The people, you notice how the people around him are so, playing along with him. In fact, that's the most disturbing part of this for me, is that the people around him are validating these behaviors and actually amplifying them. And this either goes up into a psychotic episode, an acute manic episode, or starts to come down. And when it comes down, that's when the drug addict starts using again. In all likelihood, this is drug-induced. What I think is bizarre to me is how preoccupied people are with whether or not he's using. He's probably not using. I see this all the time, where stimulants induce a psychotic state, and when they become so high in their hypomanic state, then they don't want to use.
Wait, so he may not even be using any drugs right now, but his brain has changed? I mean, he seems like a fundamentally different person than he used to be.
It's exactly right. He's in a different biological state, a hypomanic state. And for somebody like me that deals with these kinds of things all the time, it's like looking at a rash or any other symptom complex. It's obvious what's going on here, and in all probability, it's drug-induced.
But what's amazing to me is, Live Nation has now signed some sort of a deal with him in order to promote his, his brand of winning. And as you said, these kind of sycophants around him, this guy he's talking to on the phone, who I guess is one of his representatives, just kind of plays along with whatever he says, laughs at what he says, or just kind of plays into it, keeps saying what he's saying is brilliant, his tweets are brilliant. I just want to play for our viewers some more from this rant.
Right. It's out of touch. It's a belief in special powers. And the thing about hypomanics is they don't believe they have a problem. They believe you're the problem. And it sort of begs no alternative. They're very difficult to treat because they don't see it as a problem. Because they are so high in that state, they'll often say things like, I've figured it out. I understand the universe now. They feel in touch with something bigger than they've ever been in touch with before. But it goes to a very bad place. It's a medical condition.
So how do you recover from that?
And it does not stay the same. Well, usually it's medication, or if it's drug-induced, obviously it's treating the underlying addiction. It's time sometimes. Again, when you have somebody who's an untreated addict, though, when they start coming down is when they start using again.
And just between you and me, Britney has those statements a lot on her Instagram. Whether she writes them or not, I don't know. I think they might write down what she wants written, because she has said that a lot. I've figured it out. I love dogs more than humans. I've figured it out. I now meditate. I've figured it out. I'm an atheist. And she believes the crazy stuff that she writes because she's in a hypomanic state. I mean, do you not see the similarities here? Do you not see Free Britney movement, that you are sycophants? You are the people supporting her behavior by saying that she's still locked up, she's in a prison. It's like you guys have to pull your heads in at some point and realize that Britney's not well. And as soon as you can all realize that, the sooner everyone can move forward in trying to make her realize that she actually does need help. Because, I had to tap out a while back because I was like, yeah, nothing's changed. This team is not going to play this wicked game of pretending that this is Britney, that they've used a body double for 2 years, because what's the point? What's the outcome? There's no payoff. There really isn't. She was set free. She started acting free, and then everyone started, even myself included, this can't be Britney, because this person's very unattractive and very crazy. So yeah, it kind of made sense. I was never 100% on any opinion. I was always like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. But the thing is, when something goes on for this long, you have to actually recalibrate your own brain and say, hey, yeah, she reminds me of Charlie Sheen. And we all know, the world knew Charlie Sheen was off his rock star and he was talking 1,000 miles an hour. And as Dr. Drew said, very, very hard to deal with and medicate because they do not believe something's up. And this is how I feel Britney is. She does not believe anything is up because it's the first time she's been feeling in a very long time. Her brain chemistry has changed. She doesn't have brain damage. It's just her brain chemistry's changed. You know, people just go off on one little post or one comment, or it's like you got to look into it deeply. Do your research. But I'm just going to show you the last bit of what Dr. Drew says.
I mean, does a family intervene? What happens in a case like this? He's got obviously huge amounts of money.
I mean, right, that torrent of speech is so typical of hypomania. You know, those of us that don't have power and fame and money, your employer would step in, your family would step in. And the fact is, what usually happens is a doctor or the law enforcement steps in and puts somebody on an involuntary hold, a 5150. And that's where many of these patients end up oftentimes before they are effectively treated.
Well, there you go. It's a lot harder to deal with famous people because they have power and privilege, and they have a lot of yes people around them, but they have people that do want to help. If you're just a, average Joe in society, the family will step in, the employer, and then the cops will come and take you to the hospital. And when he said that, I was like, maybe that's why the cops went to her house that night, Like a couple of months ago, and they said she wasn't there. Maybe they actually came to do a 5150 on her. I had never even thought about that. And maybe her team are like, hey, look, if you do that to her, she will lose her mind because she's very adverse to going to any hospitals. So what happened a month later? Oh, the team tried to do an intervention. That kind of adds up, don't you reckon? The team tried to do an intervention. They said to the cops, nah, look, we're going to deal with it. This is what's going to happen. They had a lot of professionals on board, and they're like, we've got to do this. But it never eventuated. Maybe she is back in Westlake in the mental health part of it. Because Westlake is also just a hotel, by the way, but it has a very specific mental health facility for famous people. So they're not staying in an institution with everyday Joes. They're there, they're protected, and it's private. And maybe she is back there. I really feel that the police coming from so-called TikTokers calling the cops, they probably called the cops and said, you need to 5150 her. Think about it, everyone. This is big. Go and watch everything Dr. Drew's ever spoken about Britney. He has never changed his opinion. He has always said there is something seriously up, and it is a very difficult thing to deal with. I rest my case, Your Honor, and I love Dr. Drew. I don't care what anyone says. You can all bloody, I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will see you at the top. Bye. Bye. Cheers, ballers.
How it real, how it real, feels so real. How it real, how it real, how it real, and that feels so real. How it real, how it real, how it real, feels so real. How it real.